Welcome to another episode of Pels in the Blender. It's your boy Davis. I have the lovely Miss Chrissy joining me today on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me. It is a beautiful day, so vibes are high for sure.
A- Absolutely, vibes are high. Everybody's feeling pretty good right now in the city. It's not the worst it's been. Like last year when we ended both sports seasons, everybody was just at like an all time kind of low. We were just kind of speaking about it before we got on about how the Saints kind of, even though they're not winning technically, people kind of have a little bit of hope looking forward to it. So we kind of want to go ahead and carry some of that energy over, but pick it up when we talk about these Pelicans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but we do have to remember last year the Saints did start out 2-0. So at this point, we thought we were going to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and then we went 0-7 after that. And all of
Man.
our the thing is, that was more devastating to me than the Saints starting 0-2 this year because we
Mhm.
expected it. We know we're rebuilding.
Yeah.
So at least we're just like, hey, we're at least competitive and we're in each game so far. Not like last year where we just nosedived.
Yeah, like they started out so dominant. I mean, two blowout wins. You were like, Pelicans figured it out, and no, that that
Nope.
quickly. It was one injury. I think it was the center that got hurt. The
Yes.
center got hurt, and immediately after that,
Yep.
we died. But
Yeah.
coming into this season, we got some young players. Spencer Rattler's actually looking pretty
Mhm.
good. So with that, we kind of want to talk about the young guys transitioning. So my question that, or at least what we want to talk about today on the show is the Pelicans have a lot of new faces on the team, right? But just because they have new faces, they can actually remind us of some of the old faces that we used to have, right? So I kind of want to start before we jump into exactly who that are. Let me ask you this. What do you remember about like the old Pelicans or Hornets teams, depending on how far you want to go back?
Well, I remember it being a very dynamic type of situation when you have Chris
Mm,
Paul and then when you got AD and you have high expectations and high hopes that something really good is
mm-hmm,
going to happen here. And I mean David West, I mean there was just some lineups that looking back you're like gosh, how did
mm-hmm,
something huge not happen for us? And I think that is where we're at now. We have the opportunity for that to happen. I feel a lot of like people are very positive about this season coming up with
mm-hmm,
these lineups that we do have now with the roster. I feel like the Pelicans right now, it's like when you're in a relationship for a long time and you have like
mm-hmm.
you go through some tough times and then you
Yeah,
can
ups
tell
and
you're pulling out
downs.
of it and you're like, oh man, I feel like that's what people are like, hey, we're hitting a good patch now. And that's what's
Mm-hmm.
hopefully about to start next month.
So that's typically how things go for the Pelicans. We kind of rebuild, like you get Chris Paul, you see the ups, then you have a little struggle, you see the downs. They get AD, they have they struggle, then they have the ups, then they have the downs. So I think we're at the point where we got Zion, struggled, we had some ups. I think last year was our down, and I think
Mhm.
this season, because typically what we'll do is, and realistically, if you look historically, last season was the year where the Pelicans or Hornets have historically transitioned, and this year they decided not to do that. Like if you go back, Chris Paul ended up leaving right before we got Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis ended up leaving literally right before we got Zion, and we had some of our worst seasons. This particular season, last season, was one of the worst ones, and we had some change, but it was good change in my opinion. I think they brought in the right kind of people, and we always hoped, like, man, why couldn't we get AD and keep Chris Paul? Or why we couldn't get Zion and keep Anthony Davis and actually finally have those two, mega stars and kind of build off of that. So now we actually kind of went that route. We drafted Jeremiah Fears and then we drafted Derek Queen. How do you feel those particular people, like with the team that we already had, and those two players coming in as like high prospects, able to come in and like actually help the team, because we're talking about the positiveness, the positivity of the season. How do you think they're going to be positive coming in this year?
Well, first, I want to say part of the reason why this season isn't being a rebuilding year is because, yes, the record was very bad last year. It wasn't because we did not have the talent on the roster. It was because all of our talent on the roster was hurt all year long. So there wasn't a need to rebuild. There was a need to get healthy and stay healthy. And that has become such a focal point that's really important. And then when you add in pieces like Fears and Queen, that is where it becomes very interesting, because yes, they are rookies coming in, but they do have very high ceilings. And you can look at, David West from a little over 20 years ago and Chris Paul 20 years ago, literally to the month getting drafted at the same time by the Hornets. And there are a lot of similarities to that. And so it is going to be interesting to see what they're able to do.
Yeah, so you kind of hint at it already. Let's go ahead and like kind of dive into that, because my thought was when we initially drafted Chris Paul, and Chris Paul to me was like my first time, like, well, I was a fan when Baron Davis was still here, but Chris Paul was like when I really became a fan. And I think this particular organization and this team kind of has like a recipe for success. It's dynamic point guard, versatile big. And, we kind of seen it a couple times. You saw it with Chris and David West. You saw it with Drew and Rondo to a degree that season with Anthony Davis. And now I think you saw it. We had a successful season with, technically Zion was kind of like the guard, but like, I think moving forward, you'll have a similar thing with Fears and Queen. How does Fears game to you correlate, or maybe even not his game? What is the impact of Fears, in my opinion, like in your opinion, to like Chris Paul? How do those things translate?
Well, there's two things that stand out to me. The first part is that Fears is 4 inches taller than Chris Paul. So
Is he really?
Yeah, so he's 6'4" and Chris Paul's
Jeez.
6 foot. So that is an advantage right there when you have 4 extra inches on you. And obviously Chris Paul's done tremendously well, being 6 foot and doing what he's done. But I feel like that is an automatic advantage. One thing that's very similar to me with Fears and Chris Paul is that they're both really cocky. And I think that is, you need to be, you've got to have some semblance of that as a point guard in the NBA. And so Fears is coming out saying, this year I want to make the postseason and I'm going to win Rookie of the Year. And we all know Chris Paul did that his rookie season as well. He won Rookie of the Year. That's a huge accomplishment, to come in the league and do something like that. So some of the similarities I see with them, or what I see could happen with Fears, is he does have a great eye on the court. I think that's huge. 3-point shooting, that's an area of growth for him. But just to have a true leader and somebody that is a true point guard on our team, I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Really, I think one of the big questions is how much playing time is Fears going to get compared to what Chris Paul had as a rookie too. Because we've got DeJounte Murray, and then obviously we've got JP. So it's like, is he going to get that kind of playing time that would even warrant numbers for Rookie of the Year?
I agree. One of my biggest things that you talked about, like the attitude and essentially the ego. Like, they have to have the ego to be great in this league, and it's because of that I actually think Jeremiah Fears is going to play a lot more than people are kind of thinking. In his game, I think the thing that we're looking for out of this season is having so many dynamic players being able to put on the court. And, even if it's with the second unit, obviously we expect him to be in the second unit. So uh-oh. I think I lost you for a second.
Oh, I got you now. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think one of the big things that we'll get from Jeremiah Fears, in that we got from Chris Paul, is that I'm in attack mode. I'm not anybody's friend. You know what I mean? And then all of those things, I think all of those things carry out and go a long way with what Chris Paul brought as a leader and as a playmaker on the floor. I think Jeremiah Fears to be able to bring a lot of those similar. I like those are their similarities in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think with him coming off of the bench, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be important to see a clean style of play. You don't want to have the second unit come in and now you've got turnover after turnover and you're just
Mm-hmm.
giving the ball away. Like that's going to be to me really key. Can you come in and play clean basketball? Maybe we don't need you don't have to be the top scorer. We don't have to have that at this point, but we
Mm-hmm.
do need a guy that can run the offense, knows how to fit Zion in there, and just doesn't turn the ball over. The Pelicans, they really struggled with that a lot last year, which is, makes sense when you don't really have an actual point guard running your
Mm-hmm.
team. So that's something I want to see where does he start out and how does he finish the season in terms of the turnover to assist
Mm-hmm.
ratio.
Yeah, he had some turnovers in the summer, and as summer league picked up, he got increasingly better with those, and he played a lot better. I'm very excited for Jeremiah Fears, and honestly, I'm excited for a lot of the guard play in general. Like, I think our guard play is going to be very dynamic this season. We could throw a lot of different looks at people, but specifically with Jeremiah Fears, talking about him and like just the other day he was working with Trae Young back at Oklahoma. Like he's already kind of, if you look at the people he's kind of around, he's kind of setting himself up to be one of the better players, saying I want to be, top 2 point guard of all time, all of that. I think all of that stuff makes a really big difference. And him having a running mate that he got drafted with in Derek Queen that has similar things kind of also, it's not all on him. Like both of them are coming in with a chip on their shoulder. So let's kind of transition to Derek Queen for a second, because David West was essentially the bully of the teams when we had him in the best way. You need those kind of no nonsense, big, versatile, tough guys. And with Joe Dumars coming back, they think Derek Queen can be similar to that. What do you think David West and Derek Queen's games, if at all, do you think kind of mirror each other?
Well, one thing that to me is so different, especially from back then to now, is David West played 4 years of college basketball and Derek
Mm.
Queen played one. So you
Mm-hmm.
right there, I mean, experience wise, David West had a leg
Mm-hmm.
up on him. But even as a rookie, David West didn't play a ton of minutes. I mean, he averaged less than 4 points a game. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really till his third year that, I mean, he really jumped up in numbers and playing time and all. So you can't completely compare the two, but Derek Queen does have, he's the big body down there. He does have a nice touch to his game. I feel like rim protection is something that he's going to have to get better on. But I think all the young guys that come in, that's something that, because you just haven't played at that level. So
Mm-hmm.
I do see some similarities. I think it's going to take Derek Queen. If it took David West 3 years to really kind of get his footing, I think it's going to take
Mm-hmm.
Queen at least that long as well.
Let me ask this question. Do you think the style of play in today's NBA, with the game being more open and more, more fluid, you have more versatile bigs? Because back then, David West's game wasn't like, he could post up some, but he was more of a spacing big man. And realistically, you had to play back to the basket back in those days. Do you think the way that the game is played today will make the transition for Queen a little bit easier than it did for David West?
Yeah, I do. For sure, you've got to have a jumper, obviously a mid range as a big man. Like that's just part of the game for the most part. I think that is going to help him because he's not just a straight big post player. Wait on the block and we'll bounce pass it into you, and then
Mm-hmm.
just right there reach up for the layup. So I think that is definitely going to help him for sure. But I think he's just doesn't have a ton of experience right now. I'm excited for him. I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that we traded up so we could get him. I think that what Dumars sees in him is really important. And Dumars said, like, we want to be 10, 12 deep on our bench. And I think part of that
Yep.
reason for that is because of possible injuries. And we want to make sure that we're stacked no matter what. And so Queen's going to be perfect in that role for sure as a rookie, coming off the bench and seeing what he can do.
I agree. I think a thing that because I was thinking about this and comparing like the old teams that we have to like this new iteration of the team, and especially the young guys. So like I look at obviously Zion, Trey Herb is like their own core. But similar to when they got drafted, or when I'm not with they, but like when Trey Herb and Jose came in, you know, they kind of every rookie class kind of sticks together, like they're their own little trio. So and Zion was the older guy to them. In this particular group, I think you have Fears, Queen, and Missy. And if you think about it, when we had Chris, David West, one of the unsung heroes of that team was Tyson Chandler, you know, with the Crescent City connection and how, you know, it kind of opened up the game for everybody. If you look, this team is kind of not reincarnated, but kind of reincarnating some of the things that we had back then when we had really good vibes and something exciting. And I was just thinking about it, like, how do you feel about maybe a comparison, or can those three build some kind of relationship and rapport to where you see what we saw from like David West, Chris, and Tyson? Can we form something like that with Fears, Queen, and Missy?
Oh yeah, there's definitely potential there with them, especially with Missy. You know, coming in for this is his second year, but he's gonna. I really think he's gonna. Yeah, I definitely think he's gonna wrap his arms around the two rookies there. And I feel like Fears is just gonna take that whole like those three together, and he's gonna make sure that there's something special there. He gets it from what I can tell from his interviews. He just gets what it takes and leadership, and that you've got to have a camaraderie and have that kind of relationship with everybody. You can't just be solo on it. And he is a competitor and wants to win, and we need that.
Absolutely. A lot of people are saying that the weakness of our team is the second unit, but it's kind of, I don't look at it necessarily as a weakness. I think about it more as unproven. And how I'm viewing the team, if our starters are as strong as we think they're gonna be, we have a strong starting five, even, you know, down to the 6 man. I think like our first off the bench is pretty strong as well. But if that particular group can take ownership of the second unit and look similar to how when Trey Herb Jose got drafted, or similar to what, you know, maybe not necessarily as impactful, but similar to how if they can match some of the potential of those old people, you really have a dynamic little core on the second unit that has fire. They have intensity. I like the attitude because they're coming in trying to make names for themselves. I think Fizz, you can't win Rookie of the Year and not try to fight for, let's say, starting. You might not start the season, you know, become a starting player, but you have to look like a player that can start for your team or be a starter in the league. So if you're doing that on the second unit, I mean, I think that bodes well for our team.
Well, the reason why this second unit, those newer guys, have a chance at replicating it is because they literally get to learn from Trey, Herb, Zion, Jose. Like, they have that to look up to, and they're right there. It's not like, oh, well, this is, you know, how these guys were here a decade ago, and can they be the? No, it's not. They're literally being integrated with them right now and getting to learn. And you know that they've got to be asking, like, how did you guys bond and become what you did? And if they just listen to that advice, I mean, why just replicate exactly what they've done, and it should be able to happen with the second unit. I don't see why it wouldn't.
I completely agree. Let me ask you a fun question. Who from the older teams were like, other than like the star players, let's say non-stars, who from the older teams were like one of your favorite players?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, I know he was a star, but I mean, I loved Rajon Rondo. Like, I loved him.
Oh yeah.
I loved his play. But you know what I've really loved? I've loved watching Drew's career from the Hornets days and with the team, how it's evolved now. And he's just this beast on the court. He's been, to me, one of like the most fun that I've enjoyed just watching his career. And I wish he was still with the Pelicans.
I know what you mean. I was thinking about it and I was looking at, because I was comparing like our team now to some of the older teams, and I was like, I think we have a new, because you know who one of my favorites used to be when we had when Peja Stojakovic from his time was one of my favorites. Nico Mirotic for
Oh yeah.
like I think you need every team that we've had that's been really successful has had like that 6'10" shooter, like, it's like sniper on the court that could, and Peja didn't put it on the floor by the time he got to us, but like, Nico was able to put it on the floor a little bit. I think, and I don't know if we consider Trey, I think Trey is like the better version of all of that. So like, and like my favorite, and I think that's probably why I love this team so much, because this team kind of reminds me of like some of my favorite iterations. It's got a little bit of all of the favorite things I like about, honestly, being a Pelicans fan in general. Like, I remember what Chris Paul was like when he was here, and Fears kind of reminds me of that. David West, I love the toughness and the versatility. Queen reminds me of that. Trey gives me the Ryan Anderson, some of those kinds of players. And I think if they're all healthy, you kind of see it, and I think that's when you get like the buy-in from the city, and everybody, like, you be looking forward to a good year. So with that being said, I also want to ask you this: who is your unsung hero for this particular season? Like, who do you think is going to be the MVP that we didn't know we had, or we didn't know we needed?
I really think it could be Jordan Poole. I
think
having him step in with Murray being injured right now,
mm-hmm.
I think people really underestimate how good he is because of where he's been the last couple of seasons. But this guy, he is talented beyond belief, and I don't think he's been with the right tools and coaching and what he's needed the last couple of years to show who he still is. And so I think he's like, this is redemption time. He's going to be able to show how he can guide and lead a very talented, healthy team. And it's really just going to be up to when DeJounte is ready to come back. So I'm over the moon about the Jordan Poole signing.
I agree. Jordan is one of my favorites, but I don't know if he's unsung, because everybody been talking about him. My unsung is Tina Miller. I'm with you, Saddiq Bey. I think Saddiq off the bench, if he's healthy, and which he's had a long time to rehab, and we've been seeing him doing his offseason workouts and stuff. But if he comes back to form, that's a guy who can shoot the ball, been in the league for a while, plays a little bit of defense. I think we missed a lot of what Najee brought off the bench, and not saying he's going to defend like Najee was able to defend, but just having another possibly consistent shooter off the bench that's going to play with some toughness. He's averaged double digits. Man, I think Saddiq Bey off the bench with those young guys, to where he doesn't have to overwork. You really just got to space and shoot, because the offense should go through Queen or Fears or Jose or Murray or whoever. So like, he absolutely should be able to come in and just come in like, thank you, Trey, appreciate you, come in, get open looks and knock down open shots. Then if he can do that, then I think that's going to be our guy that, we'll be saying, hey, we thought we could get some from him, but like, he's actually one of the people that we have that we need, that actually putting us, because I got us pegged for like 49 to 50 wins. So, and I think he's one of the people that people are overlooking.
I think you're right about that. That's a really good call out. I definitely could see that happening. And I mean, with the kind of talent we do have, like you're saying, if he doesn't have to overwork himself, then that's just going to let him come in, just hoop, and that's what we need to see out of him. Knock down an open shot.
Let me ask you this, and I'll get ready to get you out of here. Also, like, one of the older, we've had a couple iterations of this team, and like coaching and stuff like that as well. Does Willie Green remind you at all of like any of the older coaching, like Byron Scott when he was here, or Monty when he was here, or anything like that? Or do you think no?
No, he is just a different version all around. And I mean, this is a shot this year. It's like you got a winner, you're going somewhere else. So
Yeah.
he does not remind me of any of the other coaches, and I mean that's fine. Like I don't mind different style of coaching and just demeanor and things like that, as long as you get the job done. It doesn't matter to me. So fingers crossed, this is gonna be his glory days this season.
Okay. I think this is my second time talking. I don't think I asked how do you have the Pels finishing this season?
I think the Pels will finish in the top 5 in the Western Conference Finals.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's gonna happen. The team is stacked, in my opinion. It's going to be so fun to watch, and they have an emphasis on different things that matter, which is the health. That I'm telling you, that is the only thing stopping them from making a deep run in the playoffs. It is literally health, and so with that being something that we know has to happen this year, I think it is going to happen, and so I think it's going to be a very fun, definitely 50-win kind of season for us.
Let me ask another question. Do you think because we're getting ready to go into media day, that media day is like a little over a week away. We got training camp, getting ready to fire up and preseason and all of that. Do you believe that like we're gonna get any shocking revelations or any news from, because media day in the past couple seasons have been a little turbulent. We've gotten Zion broke his foot, and then Willie won't announce the season. So my fingers are crossed that we don't have anything happen at media day. How are you going into media day? Are the spirits high? We got the rabbit's foot. Is everything good going into media day?
Yeah, I think it is all good at this point. I think that Dumars is really holding a different standard for people. And yeah, Tina, you're right. We are going to surprise a lot of people this year. But I will say, from media day, New Orleans, we're going to be fired up. The national media is still going to be like, womp womp. They're not going to do things too. But we have to put up some wins, and that's how you get the national media to talk about you. Look how much they talk about OKC. They're a winning organization at this point. It doesn't matter that they're a smaller market; they're a winning team, and you have to talk about the winners.
Absolutely. Listen, I like the idea of being an underdog like throughout most of the season. That's kind of what I'm hoping happens, to be honest. It's like, even if we get wins, I'm hoping that like they say, well, they're the Pelicans. They're gonna do what the Pelicans do, and then you could just low expectation, fly under the radar, and just beat the brakes off people like we supposed to. Because like anytime you start laying out the roster, our roster is pretty much better than like most teams, to be honest. Because, and I'll ask this one last question before I let you go. A lot of people talk about the roster, right? And they're not good and yada yada. Or even if they say the bench isn't good. Do you think, and this is a two-part question, if Golden State would have drafted Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen, that ESPN would have graded it the worst draft, like the worst draft ever? You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
So, no, they wouldn't have. They would have been like, these were great pickups for them. This is exactly what OKC needs. I mean, that's what they would have been saying for it. But once again, the reputation precedes them. They have a winning record of making good decisions, and look how they've turned what they've turned it into. And the Pelicans don't have that kind of track record right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what was the other thing I wanted to ask? It was because we were talking about the players, and obviously the double standard of when you are on this particular roster, nobody thinks you're great. I noticed that while everybody talks about the Pelicans are going to finish, like they projected us to have one of the worst futures and all of that stuff, right? Meanwhile, you're constantly hearing the Lakers trying to trade for Missy and Golden State trying to trade for Trey. And then everybody wants Herb. Oh, is Zion actually available? So how do you thread the needle between, and I think that's why we're on the same page about like us being good, but how do we thread the needle on everybody wants our players, but we're supposed to be terrible?
Well, people only want something when it's worth having. And so if they want our players, it's because they're valuable. They're bringing something that not everybody else has. This is literally what I tell my sons about dating. I'm like, hey, if other people think that your girlfriend is pretty, that means you are actually dating a pretty girl. So be happy about that. And that's what's happening with the Pels. we have talent. Other teams know that. So we're going to just have to show them and show out when the season starts.
Absolutely. We're on pace. We got the right energy. We got the right mojo going. I think this is a 50-win team, 50 plus wins, depending on what's going to happen. Let me get that last comment for it. People hate us for the Queen trade, but a lot of people like this game. He would have went 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And lastly, with Gilbert Arenas was talking about how a lot of teams should have took Derek Queen calling. He was like, bro, he was like the next Embiid, like built like Joker. Basketball players know that our players are really, really good. So with that being said, thank you, Miss Chrissy, for joining the show. I really appreciate it. I hope you forgive me for calling you Miss. So
you're good. I had a great time.
Yeah, that's just the respect angle. And man, thank you so much for joining. This was a lot of fun. All right, thank you, Tina, and everybody that joined in. For us, this is Alvin Pels in the Blender. Y'all have a great day. Y'all be safe.